The fire had taken more than just the building. It had stolen Zephyr's mobility, leaving her with a limp that seemed to mock every step. I, Kaelen, refused to accept it. For 2 relentless years, I became her unwavering advocate, scouring the globe for specialists, chasing experimental treatments, pouring every ounce of my energy and resources into restoring her to the woman she once was. Progress, when it finally came, felt like a sunrise after an eternal night. But the dawn was false. I received the devastating news. Zephyr had undergone an amputation. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of disbelief and dread. I abandoned my work, the half-finished designs on my screen blurring into insignificance, and raced to the hospital. But the scene that greeted me was not one of tragedy, but of twisted, sickening affection. Zephyr's voice, usually a strained whisper these days, was now a melodious purr, dripping with saccharine sweetness into her phone. "Orion, darling," she cooed. "You lost your left leg, and I lost my right. We're truly a match made in heaven, aren't we?" A cold, bitter laugh escaped my lips. It wasn't a sound of amusement, but of shattered illusions and a heart turned to ice. Without a second thought, I canceled the order for Zephyr's custom-designed prosthetic. If this was their twisted idea of heaven, I would grant them their wish. Let them be perfect for each other, in their shared incompleteness. "Mr. Vance," a hesitant voice crackled through the phone. "Are you absolutely certain you want to cancel both orders?" I turned, my back to the sterile white walls of the hospital, a place that had become a second home, a monument to my futile hope. "Yes," I replied, my voice flat, devoid of the turmoil raging within. "Sir, these are custom-made prosthetics. They are non-refundable." The voice was cautious, treading lightly, as if dealing with a volatile customer. "Do whatever you want with them. Consider the money a donation to whatever, or whoever." The words were laced with bitterness, a childish outburst I couldn't quite suppress. I hung up, severing the connection, severing the last thread of my naive generosity. I stepped out of the hospital, and the sky was a canvas of oppressive gray, mirroring the day Zephyr had accepted my clumsy, heartfelt proposal. Back then, the dreary weather had felt like a blessing, a sign of a good, rare day. Zephyr had been working part-time at the university cafeteria, a quiet, unassuming figure that somehow drew me in. But it was her act of kindness, her desperate dash through a torrential downpour to save a litter of abandoned kittens, that truly captured my heart. She was kindness personified, a beacon of light in a world that often felt dark. She was everything I wanted. And, against all odds, she had said yes. She became my girlfriend. But my family, with their generations of wealth and privilege, saw things differently. For Zephyr, I had willingly stepped away from the gilded cage of my inheritance, starting at the bottom. A mere cog in the corporate machine. I faced scorn, sabotage, and endless obstacles. Yet, I never let Zephyr bear the brunt of it. I shielded her, never burdening her with my struggles. But she, in turn, constantly compared me to Orion, holding him up as a paragon of virtue and ambition. "A good example," she said. Foolishly, I believed her. I even went so far as to ask my sister, Lyra, a powerful influencer in the tech world, to provide Orion with opportunities to boost his burgeoning streaming career. I had been blind. All my sacrifices, my unwavering devotion, meant nothing compared to Orion's empty words of inspiration. I tilted my head back, staring at the oppressive sky, a bitter smile twisting my lips. The smile faded, replaced by a silent stream of tears. As I reached the corner of the building, a figure shot out, moving with surprising speed despite a pronounced limp. It was Zephyr, who just days ago was languishing, supposedly weak, in a hospital bed. It was a testament to her newfound strength that she could move so swiftly, even on one leg. There was no need for elaborate deductions. It was for Orion. Always for Orion. A wave of bitter sadness washed over me. In all our years together, even when I was battling a debilitating flu, she had never so much as fetched me a single pill. But Orion? A single phone call, and she was ready to charge into battle for him. I got into my car, driving home. I hadn't gone far before the relentless barrage of calls from Zephyr began. "Get over here now." Her voice was a sharp command, followed by the abrupt click of the call ending. "And bring a lot of money." She knew. She didn't even need to wait for my response. She knew I would come. I arrived at the scene of the confrontation. It was a chaotic mess. Zephyr and Orion were clinging to each other, a picture of pathetic, Codependent misery. The expensive handbags and jewelry I had showered Zephyr with were piled haphazardly on a relatively intact table. Surrounding the table were a group of menacing figures, thugs clearly demanding payment. I understood the situation instantly, but a gnawing suspicion arose. Had all the gifts I had given Zephyr been funneled to Orion? I had questioned her before, noticing that she never seemed to use the gifts I gave her, while Orion frequently flaunted identical items on his social media. But her tearful denials, her wounded doe act, had always disarmed me, leaving me riddled with guilt. Hurry up. This isn't enough, the leader of the thugs growled impatiently. My eyes scanned the pile of luxury goods, and then they locked onto something familiar. My heart constricted. It was the ring I had given Zephyr, bought with my first paycheck. It was snapped in two, the broken pieces wedged cruelly in the crack of a floor tile. Who did this? My voice was low, a dangerous rumble, as I stepped towards the table, carefully extracting the mangled pieces of the ring. Who cares? It's just a cheap piece of junk, Zephyr said dismissively. My head snapped up, my gaze locking onto hers. I couldn't believe it. My heartfelt gesture, a symbol of my love, was nothing more than junk to her. What are you staring at? Just give them the money. Her eyes darted away, unable to meet my gaze, but her expression remained defiant, as if I should be honored to be of service to her. I remained motionless. Orion, however, spoke up. Zephyr, maybe we should just forget it. I can handle this on my own, he said, his voice weak, as if he were on the verge of collapse. Rely on your own when you are using another man's gifts to pay your debt? I asked, a sneer twisting my lips. I willingly gave these things to Orion. It has nothing to do with him, Zephyr retorted, her voice rising in agitation. Just give them the damn money. Orion shot her a look of profound gratitude, a look that made my stomach churn. She returned his gaze with a look of tender affection. My heart ached with a dull, persistent throb. Even when I was drunk, even when I simply craved a moment of closeness, Zephyr would recoil, claiming she had a phobia of physical touch. But with Orion, that phobia seemed to vanish. Hurry up and pay, you one-legged bitch. Bringing your new boy toy here won't help. The insult, crude and vicious, snapped me out of my reverie. Without a second thought, I launched myself at the man who had uttered it, my fist connecting with his face. Regardless of my disillusionment with Zephyr, I wouldn't tolerate such disrespect in my presence. The man tried to retaliate, but I easily overpowered him. Kaelen, what are you doing? Zephyr screamed, her voice shrill with panic, as if I were the one in the wrong. Tell your boyfriend to let go of Mr. Liu. Orion exclaimed, quick to distance himself from the situation. He's not my boyfriend. Zephyr spat out the words, distancing herself from me as if I were contaminated. I felt something shatter inside me, a slow, agonizing crack spreading through my chest. The force of my grip on the man weakened. If I wasn't her boyfriend, then who was? Orion. Thud. Damn it, you little punk. You dare hit Mr. Liu? I'll kill you. I was too stunned to react. The man's counterattack landed, knocking me to the ground. A flurry of kicks rained down on me. The phrase, he's not my boyfriend, echoed relentlessly in my mind. The physical pain was nothing compared to the searing agony in my heart. It felt as if my very soul was being crushed. Mr. Liu, our friend here is young and foolish. Please, go easy on him, Orion pleaded, his voice now smooth and chamoy, utterly revolting. That's right. Just don't kill him. Do whatever you want to vent your anger, Zephyr chimed in, her voice a sickening echo of Orion's. All right, Mr. Liu said, ignoring Zephyr completely, his gaze fixed on Orion. Zephyr looked slightly embarrassed, angry but unable to voice her displeasure. I laughed coldly. Who else would stand up for Zephyr besides me? Are you deaf? Get up. Do you not understand human speech? Zephyr, however, redirected her fury at me, her crutch slamming down on my body. With each blow, my affection for her dwindled, eroding like sandcastles before the tide. I was roughly hauled to my feet. If he doesn't drink, the two of you can do it for him. I gritted my teeth, refusing to give in. Mr. Liu spoke again. No, Orion is allergic to alcohol. Let Kaelen drink. I snapped my head up, staring directly at Zephyr. What are you looking at? It's not like you haven't drunk before. She was shockingly brazen. Of course, I had drunk before. For one of her designer bags, I had drunk myself into a gastric hemorrhage, earning a stern warning from the doctor never to touch alcohol again. She had been right there beside me, promising me that she would never let me touch alcohol again. Now, She seemed to have completely forgotten, remembering only that her precious Orion was allergic to alcohol. Zephyr grabbed a bottle of liquor, attempting to force it down my throat. But her efforts were futile. The liquid splashed across my face, some of it entering my nose, causing me to cough violently. "Heartless bitch," muttered someone. Zephyr bit her lip, clearly unhappy, her eyes reddening. Orion pretended not to hear. Mr. Liu narrowed his eyes, but said nothing further, giving a deadline before leaving. I had just finished tending to my wounds when Zephyr messaged me, telling me not to return home. Why should I give up my home to that pair of disgusting individuals? I clenched my phone, the freshly bandaged wounds on my hand reopening, staining the white gauze with crimson. The kind-hearted nurse scolded me gently, but then offered words of comfort, telling me that everything would pass and that I should take care of myself. Tears welled up in my eyes. The nurse's words struck me like a hammer blow, shattering the already fractured remnants of my heart. I had offered Zephyr my heart, my soul, and she had treated it as an inconvenience, a disgrace. Yet, a complete stranger offered genuine kindness. The irony was unbearable. I ignored Zephyr's messages. The apartment she was living in was mine. There was no way I, the owner, would be the one to leave. I hailed a cab. A notification popped up on my phone from a social media account I had set to special attention. My reflexes were faster than my brain. Before I could even process it, I had clicked on the page. The long-awaited pink and blue are back. The accompanying 9-grid photo collage made the poster's joy evident, a cruel mockery of my foolishness. Blue and pink toothbrushes, mugs, towels, slippers, a sea of couples' items filled the screen. I gritted my teeth, my heart sinking further into the abyss. I had once suggested to Zephyr that we use couples' items. She had retorted, asking if true couples needed such superficial displays of affection. I had believed her, but, unable to completely let go of the idea, I had subtly tested the waters, using the same towel as her. The next day, she had casually switched towels. I, afraid of upsetting her, said nothing and quietly switched mine back. The truth was laid bare before me. Zephyr wasn't against couples displays. She simply didn't see me as her ideal partner. But, thinking about it, it made sense. After all, she had gone to extreme lengths, even orchestrating her own amputation, to be worthy of her Orion. Compared to Orion, I was truly insignificant. I entered the apartment. My slippers were nowhere to be seen at the entrance. I looked around and finally found them in the living room trash can. Without a word, I slipped on the neatly placed blue slippers on the carpet and walked directly into the bedroom. The sound of hurried footsteps echoed through the room. Zephyr, leaning on her crutch, her expression of joyful anticipation freezing on her face. "Who told you to wear those?" She was furious, hobbling towards me, attempting to pull the slippers off my feet. I stepped back coldly, the sound of the door opening. Ignoring the two, I noticed the rings on their fingers. I saw them in the living room, and I had secretly tried one on, only to find it wasn't my size. Back then, I believed that she did not know my size. Now I understand. She has prepared the rings for herself and Orion. Ignoring them both, I went into my own room, where Orion's clothes were still scattered. I tossed them out like garbage. "Kaelen Vance, how dare you? Kaelen, get the hell out of my house." Zephyr's hysterical screams fell on deaf ears. I simply laid down on the bed. Listening to Zephyr's apologies and attempts at appeasement, I closed my eyes. A flurry of activity followed, and finally, the house fell silent. I finally felt a sense of peace and drifted off to sleep. Whether or not they would try to kick me out was not a concern. Orion was a man who valued his reputation. And besides, I was the owner of this house. I had the right to make them both leave. The next morning, I received a call from the prosthetic company. They informed me that canceling the order required my personal signature to avoid any future complications. The prosthetic had been a surprise for Zephyr, a way to lift her spirits. I had even, thinking of her fondness for Orion's streams, ordered one for him as well, using her name. But now, knowing that they had been entangled long before, I wanted nothing to do with it. Let them both have nothing. I slowly made my way to the company. I had hoped to relax, but my plans were thwarted when I encountered the two nauseating individuals again. "You're following us." Zephyr's eyes, filled with malice, glared at me as she emerged from trying on her prosthetic, her initial excitement replaced by suspicion. "Is this company owned by your family? Do I need to report my whereabouts to you?" She was stunned, clearly not expecting me to retort. She seemed to have forgotten that, Back in school, I had never hesitated to challenge authority figures. It was only because of her that I had learned to restrain myself. It's useless, even if you come here. Even with a missing leg, I would never be interested in you. She understood my intention, and a look of utter contempt crossed her face. I'm not as desperate as you are, I replied calmly. I turned and followed the manager who was leading me to sign the cancellation papers. Don't be so stubborn. You'll never catch up to Orion. Her hopping on one leg was almost comical, and it suddenly brought back the memory of the fire. She had rushed back into the burning building to retrieve a photograph of Orion, and a burning beam had fallen, crushing her foot, leaving her with a permanent limp. I had been consumed by guilt, blaming myself for not protecting her. I had taken her to countless doctors, seeking treatment. For 2 long years, her foot had been a constant source of pain and frustration, improving and then relapsing. Now, I realized that perhaps she hadn't truly wanted to heal. After all, how could she be a perfect match for her Orion if she were whole? But she had probably also been afraid of me discovering her deception, so she had cooperated with the treatments for a while. Finally, there had been some progress. I had been ecstatic, but my joy was short-lived. Nothing, not even her own well-being, could compare to her love for Orion. She had achieved her wish, the amputation, and my 2 years of tireless effort had been reduced to nothing. A healthy, complete body was less important than being a perfect match for her Orion. How utterly ridiculous. Her desperate, all-consuming love probably wouldn't allow her to abandon her Orion and become normal again. In that case, I would help her. Destroy it, I said to the manager, my voice cold and devoid of emotion. The manager immediately assured me that it would be done. But as I lowered my head, I saw a private message from Orion, a lengthy, heartfelt thank you note. I couldn't help but laugh. It seemed he wasn't as resigned to his fate as he claimed to be. Who wouldn't want to be normal? Only Zephyr, with her twisted mind, would willingly sacrifice a leg to be with her beloved. As the manager left, Orion and Zephyr rushed in. Kaelen, please don't let your feelings for Zephyr come between us. Don't take it out on her, Orion said, his voice dripping with false concern. I raised an eyebrow, neither confirming nor denying his words. I know you care about Zephyr. Since you already ordered it, just let her use it. I cast a meaningful glance at Zephyr. She immediately exploded. What the hell is that look for? I don't need your charity. Get the hell out of here. She screamed at me, her face contorted with rage. Zephyr, I said, my voice serious. In all these years, did you ever, even for a moment, like me? Remembering her past gentleness and kindness, I still held onto a sliver of hope. Like you? Don't flatter yourself. You're not even worth a single toe of Orion's. I wouldn't use your damn thing, even if you begged me. Her self-proclaimed superiority was almost comical, but her forced expression made her face appear grotesque. Fine. I hope you two are eternally bound together. Leaving those words hanging in the air, I instructed the manager to ensure the destruction of one particularly expensive prosthetic, and then I left. Turning back, I saw the two of them, still intimately close. My malice, which I had tried to suppress, erupted. Orion, you could have had it all, but you lost it. Let's see if you can bear it. And Zephyr, I wonder how she will react when she discovers that her beloved Orion had intended to abandon her and become normal again. I took a cab back to my original home, the opulent mansion that I had once abandoned. The sight of it brought a wave of emotion, a mixture of sadness and regret. How could I have been so blinded by Zephyr's facade, so willing to endure so much hardship? But it was my own fault. I had believed in the exchange of true hearts, but she had only seen me as a walking ATM, a convenient source of funds. I entered the security code, but the display flashed incorrect password. I was stunned. I tried again, but the result was the same. I had no choice but to call my sister, Lyra. Oh, our dear little brother has been dumped. How does the pain of love feel, little brother? Listening to Lyra's sarcastic words, I felt a pang of bitterness, but I couldn't help but chuckle. Come home and open the door for me, Lyra, I said, my voice cracking with a sob. You're a grown man, and you're still getting locked out like when you were a kid? Crybaby. I sniffled, remembering the childhood incident. I didn't have a key, but Lyra always got home from school before me, so I never worried about being locked out. But one day, Lyra went out with her friends, leaving me waiting outside the house until nightfall. I was just a kid, and I cried endlessly, convinced that Lyra had abandoned me because she was tired of me. I was terrified, And when I was finally brought home, I developed a high fever. Lyra got a severe scolding. Thinking about it now, I couldn't help but laugh, embarrassed. How could I have ever thought that Lyra would abandon me? She was the one who cared for me the most in the family. When I was bullied, when our parents were away, it was Lyra who stood up for me, who defended me. When I returned home, I discovered that my room had been kept meticulously clean, exactly as I'd left it. Lying in my own bed, I finally felt a sense of security, and I drifted off to sleep. At dinner time, Lyra finally returned. "You don't need to provide any more resources to Orion, Lyra," I said, my voice calm and steady. "Who?" "The streamer I mentioned to you last time," I reminded her. "So, you were dumped by a cripple?" Lyra was genuinely surprised. "Yes, they're missing one leg each now. A match made in heaven." I stated the fact, my voice flat, each word dripping with sarcasm. "What? Wasn't your girlfriend getting better?" Lyra's surprise continued. "She believes that missing a leg makes her a perfect match for her Orion. So, while I was away at work, she eagerly found a way to get an amputation," I said, my voice laced with irony. "TSK, then I'll blacklist that guy," Lyra said casually, as if she were discussing a trivial matter, while continuing to eat her dinner. With a few words, she sealed Orion's fate. "Let me handle it, Lyra," I said. Lyra nodded, telling me to simply inform her assistant. Looking at Orion's streaming schedule, I had already formulated a plan to ruin his reputation. I didn't hide the things I inquired, but I received a lot of harassing messages. Every message contains my insult. So I understand that Orion is not as sunny and inspirational as he shows. He's a gutter crawler, surviving on the dark side. I saved all those messages directly, which is also considered a piece of evidence. "Kaelen Vance, can you stop harassing and leave each other decently, okay? If you want to harm Orion, don't blame me for being rude. Also, I have been with you for so long. Should I give a breakup fee? I do not want too much. Just give me 100,000 as my youth fee." I didn't say anything, but she kept firing words like a machine gun. "I haven't even been with you. How can there be a breakup fee?" I fulfilled her wish and denied being her boyfriend, and she was stunned. "Get lost, you poor bastard. I never had feelings for you." Zephyr was furious. She wanted to continue her tirade, but I hung up the phone. I casually browsed my phone and saw Orion subtly showing off my apartment again. I had a plan. Since they had nothing to do with me, why should they continue living in my house? I retrieved the property deed first thing in the morning, along with the utterly laughable lease agreement Zephyr had concocted. I had never asked Zephyr to contribute to the rent. I even took care of all the meals, catering to her every whim like a devoted servant. She was spoiled rotten, accustomed to ordering me around, and it was entirely my fault. When I arrived at my apartment, I found the lock had been changed. My temper flared. I called a locksmith and instructed him to force entry. As fate would have it, just as the door was being dismantled, Zephyr and Orion returned. "Who gave you permission to touch my property?" Zephyr's fury was palpable. Orion, however, remained aloof, observing the scene like a detached spectator. "This is my apartment. Take a good look." I thrust the deed in her face, the paper crinkling under my grip. "Impossible. You're dreaming." She snatched the deed from my hand, and without even glancing at it, ripped it in half. "Believe it or not, you're no longer welcome here. Get out, you cripple, and stay out." I unleashed my own venom, my words dripping with the same disdain she had shown me. I brushed past them and entered the apartment. My first priority was to reclaim my home. The second was to retrieve a precious heirloom belonging to a friend's grandmother, which I had promised to deliver. But the sight that greeted me in my bedroom sent a jolt of icy dread through me. The antique box, usually tucked away safely, showed signs of forced entry. Its intricate carvings were marred, the lock broken. My heart sank. I opened the box, and my worst fears were confirmed. It was empty. The priceless artifact was gone. Rage, raw and consuming, threatened to overwhelm me. I turned and saw Zephyr standing behind me, a smirk playing on her lips. My gaze shifted to the living room carpet, where a tattered, silk cheapao lay discarded. Ignoring the simmering anger, I rushed towards it. I picked it up, my fingers tracing the delicate embroidery. The cheapao had been brutally ripped apart, seemingly stretched beyond its limits until the seams gave way. The lower portion of the skirt was not only shortened considerably, but the remaining fabric was shredded, as if attacked by a wild animal. Even more disgusting, some unknown substance was smeared across it, creating a repulsive, sticky mess. Your cheap dress ripped so easily. Just as useless as you are. My fury boiled over. I remembered explicitly telling her how important this cheapao was. I had even locked it away in a cabinet to prevent any mishaps. And, to appease her, I had bought her a whole wardrobe of new dresses. Zephyr, don't say that, Orion interjected, his voice a soothing balm, a stark contrast to Zephyr's venom. Some people have limited vision. They haven't seen anything of quality, so they naturally treasure trash, he continued, his words dripping with condescension. I gritted my teeth, my only desire to rid myself of these two parasites. My gaze shifted again, this time landing on a painting lying near the trash can. The painting was familiar, but a gaping hole had been punched through its center. The surrounding area was a chaotic mess of colors, creating a disturbing, unsettling image. Initially, I dismissed it, focused on dealing with the two intruders. But a familiar signature in the corner of the canvas sent a surge of rage through me. You two, you bastards. I roared and lunged at Orion. My fist connected with his face, again and again. He relied on his looks, didn't he? I'd ruined that pretty face. See how he fared then. I made sure to distribute my blows evenly across his body. He howled in pain, but it wasn't enough to quench my fury. I was grateful, in a twisted way, that they were both disabled. Their attempts to fight back were feeble, allowing me to unleash my pent-up rage. The commotion attracted the attention of the neighbors, who rushed out to intervene, struggling to separate us. I was panting, exhausted, but Orion, even in his battered state, still managed to put on a show of bravado. Is it money you want? Fine, take it, he said, tossing a bank card at me. But stay away from Zephyr. She doesn't love you. He said it, while throwing a card at me. There were too few interactions with the surrounding neighbors, who were convinced of Orion's claim. People were yelling I was a bad guy, and they criticized I bullied the disabled because of Zephyr's tear. They decided to send me to the police. I chuckled. Fine, we'll settle this at the police station, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. I want to see if your money is enough to compensate for the damage you've caused. I broke free from their grasp and headed downstairs first. The others, stunned, decided to follow, eager to witness the unfolding drama. The police station wasn't far. Zephyr and Orion, with no other option, were ushered along by the crowd, their path set. It was him. We didn't do anything. He broke into our home and attacked us. Arrest him. Put him in jail. At the police station, I remained silent, while Zephyr continued her tearful accusations. Perhaps because the disabled are inherently perceived as vulnerable, the female officer mediating the situation eyed me with suspicion. I sat calmly on the bench, occasionally letting out a sarcastic snort. Sir, please adjust your attitude, the female officer said, tapping the table and casting a stern look at me. I straightened up, ready to lay out my case. Firstly, the apartment is mine. They are the ones who broke in, I stated clearly. Are you kidding me? Are you still pretending, even at the police station? Before I could finish, Zephyr interjected, her voice dripping with disbelief. Of course, she found it impossible. Without the support of my family, I had presented myself as an ordinary, working-class individual. Secondly, they deliberately damaged items in my apartment. Those items are worth at least $5 million. Sir, extortion is not acceptable. The middle-aged officer, who had remained silent until now, couldn't help but interject. Are you crazy for money? $5 million? If that junk is really worth $5 million, I'll take your last name. I rolled my eyes at her and continued, unfazed. Before this escalates further, you can verify my claims. The two officers exchanged glances and separated me and Zephyr to discuss the situation. Just then, Orion returned, bandaged after his medical examination. I can drop the charges, but you must apologize and compensate me, he declared, his tone haughty, like a rooster strutting before its execution. You better start thinking about how you're going to pay me, I retorted, shattering his fantasy without revealing the full extent of his predicament. After all, wouldn't it be more satisfying for him to blame Zephyr? Soon, the two officers returned, having verified my claims. I was telling the truth, while Orion and Zephyr had been lying. Back in the mediation room, the officers' gazes towards Orion were filled with disapproval. They had sympathized with them, wanted to help them, only to discover that they had been deceived. After the officer finished speaking, Zephyr panicked, casting a desperate look at Orion. Orion's eyes darted around, unable to escape the situation. He realized he was in the wrong. so he clung to the fact that I had assaulted him. I simply made a phone call, and within moments, the issue was resolved. Orion received a call, and his obsequious, fawning demeanor on the phone was truly degrading. Seeing this, Zephyr suddenly cast a glance at me, a flicker of something intense in her eyes. I pretended not to notice, content to accept Orion's apology. I even generously extended the deadline for his payment, allowing him to settle the debt before his big live stream. Stepping out of the police station, the sun shone brightly, mirroring my mood. I felt a burning gaze on my back. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Whatever tricks he had up his sleeve, let him try. I still had a few cards to play. But I felt a pang of regret for my friend. I had gone to great lengths to acquire his grandmother's heirloom from a private collector overseas. His grandfather's health had been deteriorating for years. He had waited for his grandmother for so long, only to receive the devastating news of her death. He wanted to find his grandmother's belongings, hoping to bring some comfort to his grandfather. I felt deeply ashamed of my failure. I had to apologize to my friend immediately and see if there was any way to salvage the situation. As for the painting, it was a piece by a relatively unknown artist that I had longed for. My sister, Lyra, had bought it for me as a gift. Remarkably, just as I finished cleaning up the apartment and listing it for sale, Zephyr contacted me. Her messages were filled with inquiries about my family background. I found it laughable. It made sense now why my parents had initially been hesitant about my relationship with Zephyr. They must have known something all along. But they had probably feared that being too forceful would only fuel my rebellious streak, so they had let me learn the hard way. Stop with the nonsense. You have 2 days left until the deadline. Pay up, I said, cutting straight to the point. But I hadn't anticipated her shamelessness. Kaelen, you know I really don't have the money. Can you reduce the amount? Kaelen, if you want. I'm willing. Can you please not make Orion pay? Her implication was clear, even to a fool. I was utterly disgusted, but I had to admire her willingness to go to such lengths for Orion. I ignored her and instead pressured Orion. Orion, gritting his teeth, transferred the money, but not without a parting threat. You may have the money, but you might not live to spend it. He quickly retracted the message, but I had been prepared, capturing screenshots and screen recordings. His tactics were predictable. I knew his next move. All I had to do was wait for the situation to escalate. Late that night, I received another message from Zephyr. Kaelen, I actually liked you too, but I grew up with Orion. I had no choice. Kaelen, I was wrong before. Can we still be friends? Reading the message, I burst out laughing, feeling a chill run down my spine. She was so confident, so sure that I was still the same fool, ready to come running back at her beck and call. Her White Lotus act was clearly learned from Orion, and she had mastered it to perfection. I was about to ignore it, but just as I was about to turn off my phone, another message popped up. A shockingly revealing, almost obscene photo. It was truly eye-searing. I quickly covered my phone and rushed to wash my face. Zephyr was truly shameless. Before, she had refused to wear even a simple sundress, claiming to be conservative. Now, with her barely there attire, I wondered if I had ever truly known her. But these were minor distractions. As I had anticipated, things were starting to unravel. The video of me attacking Orion in the apartment had gone viral. Orion had subtly leaked information, painting himself as the victim, forced to endure my aggression. A torrent of abuse was directed at me. Even the exterior of my apartment, which I was preparing to sell, had been vandalized. Lyra even called, asking if I wanted her to intervene and suppress the negative publicity. I declined her offer, even suggesting that she let the situation escalate further. For the next 2 days, I stayed holed up in my apartment, preparing the final, devastating blow. Give up. Even if you have someone backing you, can you stand up against so many people? Kneel down and beg me. Maybe I'll let you off the hook. Orion sent me messages relentlessly, hoping to see me grovel. But he underestimated me. He was too arrogant, too inflated with his own self-importance, even without my support. I heard that he had, single-handedly, offended quite a few people recently. He probably thought his popularity was soaring, that he was on the verge of becoming famous. But he had no idea that his current status was entirely due to the efforts of someone he had always looked down upon, me. And just as I had elevated him, I could just as easily bring him crashing down. Tomorrow, you're finished, I messaged him, a hint of anticipation in my tone. Stubborn fool. Just wait and see. He didn't believe me. But I could already imagine the look on Orion's face when the truth came out. I was truly looking forward to it. The next morning, Orion started his live stream. I knew exactly what he was planning. He was going to pick up the expensive prosthetic leg that a kind-hearted person had custom-made for him. How could I, the kind-hearted person, miss such a spectacle? Filled with malicious intent, I arrived at the live stream location, fully disguised. Orion's fanbase was surprisingly large. The area was packed with people. The entire process was incredibly touching. Although Orion had already tried on the prosthetic, he had planned to officially take it home after this sacred day. But he had no idea that this prosthetic didn't belong to him. It was in my hands. As he recounted his life story, I almost felt moved to tears. But the more I listened, the more something felt off. He was acting as if he had every right to leech off me. His resources, he claimed, were due to his own hard work and ambition, which had impressed the company's CEO, leading to their continued support. And the prosthetic? He claimed that his efforts had moved a kind-hearted individual who had custom-made it for him. He even said that he had tried to refuse, but he couldn't bear to offend the person's generosity, so he had accepted it. Hearing this, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. His repeated refusals, were they in the form of constant private messages inquiring about the progress? Or perhaps in the form of relentless pestering, even resorting to sexually suggestive language? My laughter, in such a touching setting, drew attention. Everyone turned to look at me. Some recognized me. "You dog. You should be thrown in jail. You bullied our Orion. You deserve a horrible death." A chorus of voices rose, all filled with condemnation. I ignored them and stepped to the side, casually picking up the prosthetic leg. Then, as if discarding trash, I tossed it into a nearby garbage bin. "What are you doing?" Even Orion, with all his composure, couldn't maintain his facade. "You and Zephyr are a perfect match, aren't you? I'm just helping you along," I replied with a smile, my expression devoid of any malice. "You. Enough of that," I said, slapping away his pointing finger. "Manager Lou, destroy this one too," I instructed. But no one moved. I frowned. "What the hell are you pretending to be?" Orion's assistant punched me. "Do you really think you're the boss? Haven't you learned your lesson these past few days?" The surrounding people threatened me menacingly. Zephyr, leaning on her crutch, approached, her face etched with feigned distress. "Don't touch him. He's just confused," she said. The crowd simultaneously looked at me with contempt. The fans below the stage became agitated again. Unsavory words flew like daggers. "Sigh, some people have poor upbringing. I'll be tolerant," Orion said, regaining his composure. "Just ignore the things that are born but have no mother." Mentioning my parents, I was about to strike again, without thinking. But this time, Orion was prepared. I was blocked. A group of people restrained me and threw me off the stage. The fans swarmed towards me, and the security guards seemed unable to hold them back. I had to find a way to retreat. Orion, standing on the stage, pretended not to see. I retreated to a corner, realizing I had been careless. "Stop!" A booming male voice, amplified through the speakers, cut through the chaos. It was effective. Only a loud broadcast could command such attention. Everyone turned towards the source of the voice, their eyes filled with curiosity. As the man approached, the crowd's attention gradually shifted to me. "Mr. Vance, as per your request, the files have been uploaded," he said. I breathed a sigh of relief, but I couldn't help but think that he should have arrived sooner, saving me from this embarrassing situation. Everyone was confused, watching me as I walked back onto the stage. I quickly opened the uploaded files. The reason why I assaulted Orion. And the video of Orion and Zephyr's intimate encounter the previous night was displayed for all to see. I had even been considerate enough to censor their private parts. "Tisk, they're quite adventurous," someone in the audience commented. Orion, who had been pushed aside by me, his face darkened, but he remained silent. Next, I displayed screenshots of their conversations, both Orion's curses from his alternate account and his private messages filled with manipulation. Gossiping is human nature. People looked at Orion's face and gradually became disgusted. "Liar, deceive our feelings, you should die. You deserve to lose your leg. This is retribution. Go to hell." When the presentation finally ended, the curses began. The fans, like fickle reeds, had once loved him intensely, and now they hated him with equal fervor. Orion had already seized the opportunity to flee. The fans could only leave, muttering curses. I returned to the lounge provided by the company. Orion was standing beside the middle-aged man from earlier, Mr. Dew, looking like a frightened quail. "Mr. Vance, please be magnanimous and forgive me. I was blind and didn't recognize your importance. Just treat me like a fart and let me go. Before I could even sit down, Orion, with only one leg, knelt down with a thud. Tisk, I clicked my tongue in disgust. Hurry up and get him out of here, Mr. Dew instructed. Mr. Vance, I was wrong. It was Zephyr. She seduced me first. Orion, surprisingly agile on one leg, dodged the people and lunged towards me. Please forgive me. I'll do anything you want. He looked up at me, his eyes soft and pleading, like a spring pond. I shuddered involuntarily, moving further away from him. I had no such inclinations. With the matter resolved, everyone left. But then I heard a sound. I instantly became alert, opening my eyes to find Zephyr. Kaelen, I was deceived too. I actually liked you, she said, her eyes filled with tears. Don't tell me you like me. It makes me sick, I retorted without hesitation. Kaelen, please forgive me. I can't. As she spoke, she began to undress. I was so startled that I fled the room. How could she be so shameless? Even after escaping the room, I was still shaken. Then I saw Orion arguing with the prosthetic company staff, trying to sell the prosthetic I had ordered destroyed for a high price. But he failed. He was pushed to the ground, his crutch thrown far away. He could only pound the floor in frustration. Kaelen Vance, you'll die a miserable death. Damn it. Damn it. His eyes were filled with hatred. I had no doubt that if he had the power, he would truly want me dead. I strolled leisurely past him and committed a truly despicable act. I kicked the good leg of the cripple. As I walked away, I made sure to kick his tattered crutch even farther. I returned home, transitioning from a struggling worker to a subordinate under my sister, Lyra's, management. And when I next heard news of Zephyr and Orion, they were in a basement, one dead, one injured. It was said that when they were found, Zephyr was still hacking at Orion's leg with a knife, muttering about wanting to become normal. I found it utterly terrifying, and I requested another vacation from Lyra to travel.